Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm Sarah Sperber. I'm a real estate agent in the Northern Nevada market. And on today's video, I'm going to be talking about 10 things that you really need to be asking your realtor or your potential realtor if you're thinking about letting them list your home. Now, if you stay till the end, I'm going to give you a bonus 11th question, so make sure that you keep on watching. Coming in at number 1 is, how long have you been in the real estate industry? Pretty valid question, but also you're going to want to know how much experience your agent has with specifically selling properties. Now, a lot of people just assume all realtors do both, and for the most part, we're all licensed to do both, but the thing is, upon entry, you're most likely going to be working with a lot of buyers, probably more buyers than sellers, and that's because to list a home, the seller has to negotiate both commissions, and they both come from the selling side in most cases. So when you work as a buyer's agent, it's more or less free to the buyer because the seller's paying for that commission. So all you really have to do, it's a huge job, right? It's a huge responsibility, but all you really have to sell them on initially is your ability to show them houses. Obviously, once you get involved in a transaction, there's a lot more to it, but it's not the same as persuading somebody that you're gonna list their house for 6% commission on top of, all the other costs and fees, so it's gonna cut into their net profit. It's a much tougher sell. So you're going to want to make sure that whoever you entrust to list your home has adequate experience with actually listing and successfully selling homes. So we're going to dive further into that, so keep watching. Number 2 is going to kind of piggyback onto number 1, and that question is, what is your track record in terms of number of homes you've sold and time that it took you to sell them? Now, in this case, you're going to want to keep in mind that the market shifts, and sometimes it's a buyer's market, and in that case, homes will sit online for a lot longer than when it's a hot seller's market. And, if people had listings during the COVID era and they're like, well, the last few listings I had sold in 6 days, you have to kind of ask qualifying questions, right? Like, what was the market like at that time? What was the average days on market at that time? Because all of that kind of comes into play and will help you have a more complete picture of what you're actually getting. For example, if the average days on market right now, it's around 15 days. This was at the closeout of last month, and to be honest with you, I haven't looked this week, but last I checked, it was around 15 days, right? So now selling something close to that 15-day mark is gonna look really great, as opposed to taking 15 whole days to sell something 2.5 years ago would have been like an eternity. So just keep those things in mind. Number 3, you're gonna wanna ask your agent for testimonials and maybe even some client references of people that you've worked with in the past, and maybe make sure that those are specifically seller references, people whose homes your agent has sold. And if your agent is comfortable in this role, they really should have no issue submitting that to you. If they do, it's probably a red flag. Number 4, what is your marketing strategy? Now, again, it's a red flag if your agent comes to a listing presentation and doesn't go over that with you. They should have at least a whole page in their pitch book about how they plan to market your property and get it sold for the top dollar in the least amount of time to the best qualified buyer, right? Like, that should just be a given, but I don't know what other agents do. I only know what I do, and that is a really important piece of selling the home. So make sure that they have a good strategy, and make sure that their strategy includes digital marketing, because as we know, that is the way of the world now and the way of the future, and you're going to want to make sure that your agent is savvy with technology and digital marketing. Number 5 would be, how do you determine the price of my property, and can I see a CMA or a comparative market analysis that led you to that price? And this one's funny because I think a lot of sellers have in their heads a reasonable price range, but when I dig into the data, sometimes they're surprised, other times they're not. But I always show literally pages of comps so that a seller can understand that I've done adequate research and that I'm making an educated price valuation for the home. Another thing that I like to do, I don't know if all agents do this, but I kind of sometimes will give a range. Like, in my professional opinion, your home is going to sell for somewhere between X and Y. And if you are in a hurry and on an expedited timeline, you're gonna wanna veer closer to X. If you don't care if it sells or not, and if it doesn't, you're gonna just rent it out anyway, then okay, we maybe have a little bit more time. One thing you want to be really careful of is to not overprice it. It can then become stigmatized. It'll sit on the market for a long time and people will start wondering what's wrong with your house, and that's like literally the worst thing you can do. My best advice is always to stay as close as possible to fair market value. So whatever your agent truly believes that is, that's probably going to be the best price point to list your home at. Number 6, will you be handling the entire transaction and sale of my home? Or do you have a team in place that's going to be assisting you? And for the longest time, I always kind of felt like I don't want people to work with anyone but me in a transaction, but now I'm at a place in my business where I'm actually actively seeking help. You guys at some point in the future here may be introduced to someone who might be helping me out. I don't know yet. I'm interviewing candidates, but you get to a point in business where that's just kind of how it is and you can't scale without more help. That said, a lot of agents, no matter where they are in business, work with a transaction coordinator. That's very common and nothing to really be afraid of. And a lot of times they'll have admin support, or there are things that just come into play with every listing. For example, a professional photographer. I'm not qualified to take photos for your home. I'm absolutely going to bring in a photographer. If your home is in, higher price ranges, I may also advise you and tell you that we need to bring in a stager. That's not something I'm going to do. I'm going to outsource that help. So just make sure you're very clear on what exactly you're getting and who exactly you're going to be working with and communicating with. Number 7, how do you communicate with your clients and how frequently should I expect updates from you on the sale of my property? Well, hopefully their answer is pretty often. If you have ever worked with me, you know that I just never put the phone down, so you can almost always reach me, which drives my family insane, but it's just kind of part of life at this season. But that said, you should at least have clarity on, are there any boundaries? Do you turn the phone off at 8 p.m.? Do you answer on weekends? All of that stuff should be vetted before you feel super comfortable and confident moving forward. Number 8, how familiar are you with the current market climate? And can you give me any pointers on how to competitively price and list my home? Hopefully you are choosing an agent based on merit and not because so-and-so has a friend who does real estate. Trust me, who you work with matters. It really matters on the selling side for your agent. It really matters on your buyer side for both your agent and your lender. Everyone kind of works together to hold deals in place and make sure all the moving parts are tended to. If you work with me, obviously you guys are here because you're aware of my channel, but I put out market updates constantly. I'm always talking about the market. I'm always making sure that I am versed in what's happening so that I can give sound advice to my clients. And that's something that across the board, any agent you work with, even if it's not me, they should be able to provide that for you. Number 9, what are your negotiation skills like? And can you share a recent negotiation strategy or skill that helped you win a deal or helped your client to win? Now, if they don't have an arsenal of these examples, I think it might be a red flag. They may not have been completely honest about their experience in the industry, so make sure that you ask those questions and get those answers. Number 10, do you have a network of buyers? That's a pretty valid question, right? Like, is there a chance that you already have a buyer for my property? Because that's gonna expedite the whole process. Do be aware that if your agent does end up representing both you and the buyer, they have to remain completely neutral. So if that makes you uncomfortable, but your agent does have a buyer, you could potentially ask them to refer the buyer client out to somebody in their office, so at least there's 2 different points of contact and 2 different parties kind of working the deal. I mean, I have no issue double ending a deal either and just remaining completely neutral, but it does kind of help in some cases put both parties at ease to have 2 different agents representing both sides of the transaction. Number 11, this is a bonus question to hopefully keep you guys engaged. Are you still here? I don't know, I hope so. But this one's super important and it really shouldn't be considered a bonus question. This should absolutely be among your questions. And if an agent is coming to a listing appointment without this, another red flag, you guys. So just make sure this is very transparent and very clear coming from your agent, and that is to know exactly what their commission is going to be, what the structure is going to be. So within that, you're going to want to know how much is going to them, how much are they keeping, how much is going to the buyer's agent. In our market, especially right now, what is very common is the listing agent keeps 3.5% and gives 2.5% to the buyer's agent. And the rationale there is really that the listing agent often has to pay for photos, marketing, host open houses. You know, they have to do a lot more to kind of attract buyers, whereas the buyer's agent, I mean, not that they don't work hard. I work with buyers all the time and it is exhausting. It's basically operating on a maybe at all times. You're like driving around, showing houses, doing all this stuff, writing offers. You don't even know if they're gonna get accepted, but both sides work really hard. Sometimes it's a 3 and a 3%, but you can expect in general in our market there to be a 6% commission that is going to be part of your sale. Now, a lot of people are saying 6%, that's like so much money. I could just do it myself, or, you know, whatever. There's a lot of rationale, but statistically, if you have an agent, especially, you know, given that agents have MLS access, which syndicates to Realtor.com and Zillow and all of the platforms, that is going to give your property enough exposure to more than compensate for their commission. And I think the last metric I heard was by 17%. So it's very worthwhile to hire an agent. That's a whole other video for another time. But hopefully this was really helpful to you guys. If you have any further questions about this topic or anything related to real estate, or if you're thinking about getting started with the buying or selling process, I would love to be a resource for you. You can book a free call with me. There's a link in the description box below. It's no obligation. It's just an opportunity to connect, for me to get your questions answered, and for us to put your next and best steps in place. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week about the Northern Nevada lifestyle, the Reno Sparks housing market, and all things related to buying and selling real estate. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.